r/AskReddit. What are some overpaid professions? I work in IT and I feel like sometimes I'd be out of a job if people actually read what was on their screen. That and knowing how to use Google Edit. To clarify, I don't mean all of IT is easy. It's not. Working in IT, I also understand why having IT is important. My post was more geared towards help desk type questions that can often be caused by overlooking or straight up not reading. Example. A user calls and asks to be unlocked and have their password reset. You do both and give them a temporary password. The user tells you it didn't work. Your system shows they are neither locked or expired deactivated. They insist they cannot log in. You remote into their PC and it says please enter your new password and confirm it. So you type in the temporary password you gave them and their new password twice to confirm it and they are able to log in. My phone blew up while I was driving to work today and people were waiting in the parking lot for me when I arrived. Turns out, a tool I created that they need to run the operation was not working because they kept getting a pop-up that said version has expired. Please click update. Thing they tried doing. Panicking. Calling my cell repeatedly. Having 5 people huddle around. Closing and reopening the program. Things they did not try doing. Clicking the button on the pop-up window that said update. Yay, anything with phone updates or restarting their PC before calling for assistance is just impossible. What really bothers me is people who are too busy to restart their computer call me to look at it, and I have to restart it anyway and it fixes the problem. Kids and their parents who unwrap and play with toys on YouTube. Looking at you, Ryan. And Karina and Ronald. Joel Osteen. Edit for typo in his name. I would list his profession but fraud was too vague. Joel Osteen. I think you mean Joel Osteen. Rabbi Osteen. Mine. I do a lot of manual software QA. I get paid almost as much as a full-on developer with the same experience. I spend about 80% of my day following a list of instructions on what to click on a web page. When it doesn't work, I push it back to the developer. Easiest job I've ever had and pays the most. Honestly, they could hire a 18-year-old out of high school to do most of this. Don't sell yourself short. I've worked with some really excellent QA engineers in the past. It's all about curiosity, communication, and how much you notice problems. A really good QA person will try 6 or 7 unrelated things and help come up with a root cause analysis, which makes fixing problems a lot easier. A QA engineer walks into a bar. He orders a beer. He orders 3 beers. He orders 12,123,340,304,230 beers. He orders 0.5 beers. He orders -1 beers. He orders a lizard. Politicians. They'd be worth the pay if they did something, but all they do is try to end each other's careers and get re-elected. Not, represent the people. Interestingly enough, Texas state reps only get a few thousand a session. They aren't paid. I worked in public policy and have met few other professions that work as hard as state legislators. That being said, them not being paid makes it so only already rich people can afford to be a state rep. Them not being paid makes it so only already rich people can afford to be a state rep. Ding ding ding. It's not actually about saving the state money, because that amount is trivial. It's about excluding certain classes of people from office. Even if you were to get elected, it's hard to find a job that's okay with you moonlighting in something else. If you can't pay the bills, you just quit. Actors who act as astronauts get paid more than the actual astronauts. That's really sad. Actors who act as X get paid more than actual X 99% of the time. If you're talking about Hollywood level actors, entertainment careers in general, TV, movie, music, sports, news, YouTube, etc. will always be feast or famine. The unwashed masses struggling to get by while the talented and lucky few will make money hand over fist. How much entertainment have you paid for in the last year? Movies, streaming subscriptions, watching ads on cable television, whatever. How much money have you paid to NASA? That's why all NASA gets a very small piece of your tax dollars. Influencers. I am fairly certain that most influencers are in fact not getting as much money as they appear to have, either due to grifting or putting their own money in. Most of them are faking it until they make it. Thank God no one said lawyer, cause we don't get paid shit. You have the greatest variance across jobs that you need a college education for. If you go into Egyptology, you know you'll never be a millionaire, but you won't starve if you can get a job. Even mediocre Comp C graduates make very nice salaries, but only a tiny few make millions. But with lawyers, you run the entire gamut, from guys making less than minimum wage given the amount of hours they need to put in, to guys making a killing. It's the table with the highest stakes at the career casino. This is a solid take, but I think very few of us are minimum wage level starving. It's just that relative to the extra education and the hoops, it sometimes doesn't seem worth it. See my post to u/exp Oriental. Right. It's actually insane that you mentioned this because these were the exact 2 points I was going to come in here and mention to others. So I'll discuss it here and tells others to see this post. Earning is definitely bimodal rather than bell curved in law. I went into my law school and the average starting income is $100K for a brand new associate out of my law school. But what must be understood is that this number is due to a bimodal curve. The people that go into big law end up making $180-200K and then everyone else is somewhere between $45-65K. So when I got out and started working for a 3-attorney plaintiff's employment firm, just 3 months ago, when I passed the bar, my starting salary was really disappointing to me. The second thing that's important is that new lawyers aren't worth shit to firms and are therefore paid like, well, shit. See, even though I have a crappy salary at this firm, once I learn what I'm doing I can leap to a bigger firm if I'm decent at my job, and my pay bump will be 3 or 4x, which is great. The last big point is that when you work as hard as you need to get through law school and pass the bar, you want a huge payoff, but it takes a bit more time to get there as a new attorney. Oil field executives make a ridiculous amount of money. I used to hire for those positions and it was insane what some people expected and how companies would actually be willing to give that wage. Yeah, it's hard being out in the field and being away from your family, but those laborers are dealing with the same shit and get paid a small fraction of what the execs expected as base salary. Never mind the benefits and stock shares and profit shares. Cause at that level more than half your income is from those shares and benefits, which most lower level employees don't get at all. You know, the ones who actually risk death. I do think they should make more. People are very misinformed about how difficult it is to lead and what that really consists of, but the scale is way off and pretty ducked up amo. Oil field workers can already make bank if they can handle the work schedule relocation. My uncle does it. 6 days a week, 12-hour days. He makes like $180K a year, likely because he's union. His body will be destroyed by the time he's 50. A friend in his late 40s started doing that work. He made enough working 3 months a year to live off of for the entire year. He said he decided to look for other work when he realized he was the only guy over 40 doing that job. Realtors. They generally don't have any skin in the game, but collect thousands of dollars of commission for facilitating transactions. I've known so many idiot realtors. Also television news anchors. They just look good and read the news in front of a camera, but so many of them consider themselves journalists. I think realtors generally earn a fair chunk of their money unless we're talking about commissions on multi-million-dollar properties, driving around to multiple houses, dealing with flaky buyers, navigating the MLS, following up repeatedly. I'm sure there are idiot realtors out there, but a good one likely earns their money. Edit. Since he's got a bit of attention, I'll add my 2C that nobody wants. I bought a condo a few years back. My realtor was always following up with me, reaching out, giving me a heads up about certain areas that were good and not so good. Most importantly, she was always available. I have a friend colleague at work who is trying to be a realtor as a side hustle. I've been looking for a new apartment and figured I could help him help me, so to speak. Usually realtors get a small commission for finding tenants. He went me a single set of listings and that was it. No follow up, no nothing. I had texted him about a place or two and basically no response. After a few weeks, the places were unavailable or off the market. His follow up was extremely poor. In the world of real estate, at least in a seller's market, time is everything. It's hard to be a part-time realtor because buyers want it and they want it now. This is sales in general. People on Reddit think that because their transactions were relatively simple that salespeople are overpaid. But it's not the easy transactions where they earn their pay. And a lot of transactions are not simple. Same goes for car salespeople. Yes, if you're just buying a car it's not a big deal. But it's when people come in with a car they still owe a bit of money on that's about to fall apart. And have very specific needs that must be met. Salespeople have to find a car that is correct for them, that they can roll negative equity into, and then convince the buyers that every feature they want isn't going to be realistic. And then they have to work with the finance sales managers to negotiate with the banks to get their loans bought when banks may not want to touch them at first. Toll booth operators. I'm all for the idea that anyone who works a job deserves to have a roof over their head and a reasonable standard of living. But when I was a kid the local news investigated, and some of the booth operators were making $90,000 a year in the 90s. That was more than most people with a PhD took home, for possibly the easiest job ever created. Average pay is $13 HR. Glassdoor.com link. 14 HTM. When I first finished college I, stupidly, went to an interview at an employment agency who said that I was only really qualified to work as a toll booth operator or in a call center. Congratulations. You just finished 4 years of college for tens of thousands of dollars. You are now able to make $13 per hour doing something a robot double do that is likely soul-crushingly boring. College sports coaches. Primarily those for top NCAA teams. The highest paid range up to over $8 million. And it's all because the college sports industry pulls in about $1 billion annually. Obscene amounts of money for a college coach. All due to the NCAA. Hopefully someday soon the players will actually be compensated for their play and companies utilizing their likenesses in video games and so forth. And it's all because the college sports industry pulls in about $1 billion annually. It's larger than that. Many schools see the value because success in sports is a massive source of advertising, not only for potential students, but for donors. Success in sports leads to more enrollment and a more active alumni base. Theatlantic.com link. And yet there are adjunct college professors who carry a full course load and need a second job to make ends meet. Craziness. Priests. Getting their salary from the government, the taxpayers. 0.3400. First years, 4,800. Late years, in euros. Per month they are in the 10% of the most wealthiest in our country. Like every year there are discussions on how inhumane our unemployment assistance is. It's basically getting stripped naked and being forced to accept, and they are battling for like every cent. But priests' raises? Send them through. What country? Germany. A lot of people in digital marketing. I get paid $150k at 30 in Florida. No state income tax. Local. You do have to be fairly smart to do my job, but the work is almost painfully easy. Once you settle in and fix things up you'll find that 10% of your time is spent on actual work and then the rest is free or doing reporting. Automate the reporting and some days I literally do nothing productive for the company. But when they hand you $25 million that drives 50% plus of their revenue, they don't mind paying that much. And since it's a fairly new field there aren't a lot of older people in it. Would you mind shedding some light on how you were able to advance in the field? My girlfriend has been doing digital social media marketing for the last 8 years. No degree, but she is starting to build up some solid experience and isn't too sure how to leverage it. She's very good at what she does, but works for the stereotypical tech software company that thinks beer on Fridays is a viable alternative to a competitive salary and real career advancement. Any advice to share? Apply elsewhere and ask for more money. First job. Started at 40k. Ended at 60k second. 55k plus 15k bonus ended 70k plus 15k bonus third. 100k ended at 105k fourth. 115k plus 35k bonus. Work for bigger companies. Going in-house is great when you can own a channel budget in the millions. Politicians. They always vote for wage increases for themselves. If you lower the wages of politicians, you don't really decrease their income. You just change who they work for, and you really want them to work for you. If politicians weren't well paid, only the wealthy would take those jobs. It's a good thing to incentivize professionalization, and it's not like their salaries are absurd. In fact, they're quite reasonable. My dad would say that nobody is overpaid if someone is willing to pay them that much. Business school type corporate professions. Half the ducking academic subject of business is just overcomplicating or mathematicizing common knowledge or basic human experiences everyone knows inherently. They'll drown you in PowerPoints full of bullshit. Science adjacent crap like the 5 elements of effective small group cooperation, like those elements are basic facts of nature as immutable as the laws of physics, and through business technology we can harness their power like never before. Being MrBeast's friend. The lawn guy who mows my lawn. I pay him well, nearly 2x the rate to edge, and now my lawn. Hubby has been ill this year, and for that I told him I wanted it done consistently, weather permitting, and not on hubby's chemo days cause I can't lock the dog up without yard access that long. Hasn't done either correctly. Today was his last day. A furry artist can make more money than a doctor. Depends what area of art. If you're a fursuit maker, you have to make suits for years for the recognition some suit makers have. Like Mischief Maker, she makes quite a lot in fursuits. If you're an artist who doesn't do NSFW, you have essentially so much competition that can drown you out. More often than not, I rarely see people make big IRL. Maybe a lucky few, but not as many as you'd think. Maybe on those at the absolute top. Popularity wise, I'm no furry, though I don't kink shame, but a family member of mine is a professional furry artist. He is pretty popular. too, not among the most popular, but he has a healthy following. If I recall correctly, the top artists on furry sites have anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 followers, while he has between 10,000 to 20,000. He earns enough to make ends meet, but money is often tight for him. He usually pulls $2,000 mo, I think. Maybe a bit more if he has a great showing at a con. Sometimes on slow months he only pulls $1,000 mo. It's a decent living, provided you don't live in a super expensive area, but not a great one or a consistent one. PMP certified project managers. I think we've been through 9 of them at work, and not a one has even come close to working out. Whenever I meet someone that has a bunch of accoutrements after their name, I think they are trying to compensate for their own incompetence or lack of problem-solving management skills. Financial advisors. I work for one. He was a high school dropout, but managed to get enough certifications and knowledge to become a financial advisor. Essentially, he helps people plan out their futures as they enter retirement and make the most of what money they have or what they can purchase now, usually annuities or securities. He's good at his job and I don't hate the guy at all. But he basically just scrapes a percentage off every client he gets and it adds up like crazy over time. He owns a Cadillac and drives a leased brand new Mercedes. Our prices are totally fair and competitive. 2. It's just amazing to me that he can rake in so much cash doing such cushy and accessible work. He's helping people live their best lives in their late years, though, so it's a good business to be involved with overall. One of my co-workers moonlights as an accountant during tax season. He's the only one in town, so he gets all the business and has for decades. He makes enough to live comfortably, with only a high school diploma and some certifications, in a few months each year, and works another job for extra money and exercise. He could likely retire anytime he wanted to. It takes an incredible amount of work to become a successful financial advisor. Yes, he scrapes a percentage off every client. How else is he supposed to run his business? When he started out, I bet he had to scrape by taking any client he could, even if they were just saving $100 a month. I would guess the reason he drives a Cadillac now is because he's been, let's say, doing financial advising for 20 years now. Source: I'm a new advisor and it is incredibly hard. To make any sort of money in this business you have to be managing over $20 million. Otherwise you're suffering. I do not envy anyone starting out right now. It's miserable. Not sure if this counts as an overpaid profession, but I've always felt like priests could pretty much do their jobs during evenings and weekends as a side gig and spend most of their time working a normal day job. Many pastors now and throughout history have had to do this, but many people want more from a pastor. They don't just want a simple sermon on Sunday and some home visits for sick people. They want someone who knows Greek, Latin, Hebrew, etc. and who does in-depth research using commentaries and translations to make a sermon. They want multiple sermons across various days of the week. They want youth groups, They want evangelism organized. They want counseling. They want someone with a master's or a doctorate. My church has 5 pastors and all of them work at least 40-hour weeks. They can only be absent on 2 Sundays per year. Plus several of them handle quite a bit of money on a regular basis, serve on multiple committees, and occasionally fight brainless city planning officials. They do a lot. Now this is all for normal pastors at fairly average churches. I have thoughts on mega church pastors, but I don't think they're relevant here. They make up such a tiny proportion of all pastors' priests. But yet, I think most of them are either somewhat underpaid or paid about right for what they do. I think very few are overpaid. Lobbyist, basically professional liars. Business etc. Consultants, I smell call bullshit. Nah, they earn their checks. Think about what their job really is. They have to, on a daily basis, convince management of various companies to actually accept evidence of things they're doing wrong and improve their processes. Anyone who's ever dealt with entrenched middle and upper management knows that Sisyphus had an easier ducking job than that. As a consultant, I don't think anyone should really need me or my services. My company charges obscene amounts of money for me to bullshit. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.